everyone. On this episode of Mismatched, it is just me, myself, and I, and all of you, of course. And I wanted to tell you the story of the Peloton relationship. And that's kind of what I'm calling it. And you'll understand in just a little bit. Um, but I am wearing my Peloton gear, even though this is not a sponsored segment. I just want to make that very clear. But you'll understand my love for the Peloton after this story. So it all began during COVID. I had met someone online, as I'm sure many people did, honestly. You were lonely and wanting to find love. And I mean, you're stuck home alone. So it's like you want to find someone to spend time with. I am a relationship girly as well. So I was definitely looking to be with someone. And all that to say is I met someone online, and actually, like, our first date was a walk and grabbing a cup of coffee and sitting in the park. And I immediately like fell for him and said, wow, like there's something here. We, dated during COVID. And because of COVID and lockdowns, we spent a lot of time together. And that was a really interesting time because I feel like a lot of couples were either breaking up or forming, because they realized, like, I don't want to spend this is too much time with a person. Where for me, it was, I want to spend all my time with a person. And if there was one person that I could isolate with, it would have been him. And so we did that. I mean, I'll never forget, like, my 30th birthday. He organized this like massive surprise Zoom, everyone dressed up. And it was really lovely because I love the beach and Hawaii, and he had everyone like dress up on the Zoom. We played games all night and had drinks and really thoughtful. We fell in love very quickly and became each other's kind of everything. And so we initially lived in two different places. So I had my own condo and he had his own condo. So I lived like midtown Toronto and he lived downtown Toronto, which is really about like a 15-minute drive difference, I would say. All that to say is, we reached a point in the relationship where we were wanting to take it to the next level. And so we said, you know what, we're not quite ready to buy something yet. Like, I don't know about that, but let's rent together and see how it goes. And now this was my first time living with a boy. And it's coming from like a European household. My parents were very much like, I don't know if we're on board with this. Because I was the kid that went against the grain. Normally in a European household, you would date someone and then you get engaged and married and then you buy a home. But in this instance, I was like kind of breaking the rules and traditions of that because I felt like I really needed to live with someone prior to saying I do, because you see another side of the person. You learn how to live with them. Cohabitating is really important, I think. And yeah, you want to just really make sure that you're seeing all facets to the person. I think it's really different when you're kind of seeing the person, on holiday where they're their best self often. I wanted like the real experience and what life would really look like with him. So we were renting, and at that time, my condo was a bit older. The market was in a really good position. And so I had said to him, should I sell my condo? Like, I don't know if it's the best financial decision for me to hold on to it because I'd be putting more money into it and then not getting it in return once I sold it. And he was like, Nicole, I'm in this. Like, I'm in it. The next step is for us to buy. Like, I know this is going to be like 1-year lease and it's going to go great. All the things to reassure me, to make me feel like we're on the same page. And so I sold my condo. I trusted in him completely, 100%. He never gave me a reason not to. And I felt like this was different. I really did. I felt like this was a mature relationship where I really trusted him. He laid out all his cards. He was, very confident in what he wanted and communicating. And we got on really well. We like hardly ever fought. If anything at all, there was like maybe a discussion about things, but we never like raised our voices at one another. It was very calm and understanding approach to any kind of disagreement that we ever had. So I sold my condo. We lived together. We rented for a year and it was easy. It was a way easier transition, honestly, than I thought it would be. I was a little nervous. Cause again, I was like, okay, like if this doesn't work out, then I'm homeless. But it wasn't, it was super easy living together. We divided responsibilities and that was really easy. He was a really good like housemate. And we lived in the city together, but he still had his condo. So he was able to rent his out. His was a newer build. So he didn't want to sell his condo. So he kept his condo and then rented. And all was good. And then because things were going so good and we were coming up to our year-end lease, we thought, I think we should buy. Like I was like, listen, at this point in the relationship, and this isn't by no means an ultimatum, but more so just a discussion of reality. And it was like, after a year, I don't feel like I want to rent anymore because I would like to invest in something. I have all this money sitting in my bank. I would like to invest it in property. And if you don't want to live with me, that's totally fine. Like we can still date, like, but like I want to purchase something, Prior to actually going forward with purchasing something, I actually lost my job very unexpectedly. I was let go and I was kind of like, what am I going to do right now? So they covered 3 months severance for me, which actually I had to fight for a few years working for them. So there was back and forth. There was a lot of negotiating. It was a very stressful time. And I was like really hurt and like down. I'd never lost a job before. And it wasn't a reflection on me. It was just simply budget cuts. So when that all was happening, I was still contributing to the rent. Finances is important to call out because this is kind of surrounding money. And so I never asked him for a break, nor did he actually even offer me one. When I lost my job, I mean, I think the first thought that comes to mind for a lot of people is, what am I going to do? I can't afford my life, or I can't pay for my rent or my mortgage or bills or whatever it may be. Can you help me or whatever? I never once asked for help. I never once asked for financial help. I picked myself back up. And I think I allowed myself maybe a week of crying and feeling sorry for myself. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to do something about this and I'm going to be fine. Put a bunch of feelers out, kind of was waiting to see what was going to happen. Then I landed one job and then another job and then another job. And then it's turned into kind of this freelance life that I was living. And I will add that I was very successful at building it at the time. And this is why I've been able to continue to do it. This is now almost maybe 4 or 5 years later. I have been freelance and I've loved every second of it and I've been more successful as a freelancer than I did with a full-time job. I took care of myself completely financially. I never asked for help. I was able to work really, really hard to support myself and still have savings. And the next step was that I really wanted to buy something and invest in property. And it had been a year, our lease was coming to an end. And so I was like, hey, what do you want to do? And he was like, let's buy a house together. Let's do it. I want more land. We can build a family together. And this is going to be a 5-year plan kind of thing. We couldn't afford a mansion, but we did want, a 4-bedroom house that we could have maybe a couple kids in and a yard with a dog. We applied for a mortgage and got what we wanted. We were house shopping for a little bit. It was the peak of the market in Toronto. So homes were going for an insane amount of money. But we got something that was a fixer-upper, so it had potential. It had really, really good bones, and it was beautiful home. And I really saw the vision kind of walking through it of how we could transform it. So when we bought the house, I was very intentional, I would say, about making sure that we were contributing the same amount of money. So should anything go wrong, it would be easy and an even split. I had heard so many nightmare stories of the relationships going astray and then the person being left with nothing. And I was really fearful of that, honestly, from the get-go. I was very scared. So I made sure that we put the same amount of money as a down payment and that both of our names were on the mortgage deed. So I was protected. It was I don't have anything to worry about because I get half because I put in half. So that was that. And he was cool with that. We were very transparent and honest about how that was going to kind of work out. So we got the house. We put so much TLC into this place. We ripped out floors. on our hands and knees, high, like asking family and friends. We had like a floor ripping up party where everybody came over. We gutted the whole house, and I like worked with a team, and I like designed a lot of it myself. I had like a vision of what I wanted this home to be. And because of, my job and working in television and media, I was able to get some partnerships throughout the kind of renovation of the home, which was a little bit helpful financially, because even though there was like a dollar amount contributed to it, we didn't see the money. That's kind of how it worked. So, almost like a donation, like for my, say, social media coverage of this item that we then didn't have to pay for, we would get the same value. So instead of cash, we're getting the value of the actual product in the house. Technically, I'm just going to put it out there, he actually saved money because I still had to work to get those things, even though he was obviously benefiting from it. But that wasn't even a thought in my mind. Like I'm saying this now in hindsight, but that wasn't even a thought in my mind when we were doing all these renovations and I was making these deals with people, because to me, it was like, this guy is my forever. Like, he's going to be my husband, the father of my kids. This is ours. What's mine is yours, babe. That's how that's how marriage works, is you are a team and you're working together to build a home. So whatever I could possibly do to, like create this home and life for us, you best believe that I would do anything, especially if it means that it's more money in our pockets that we could then be putting towards other things like a wedding, say. The renovations went really well, and we were able to build this beautiful oasis of a home. And like, I really loved my home, and I loved it so much that it didn't matter that I had to do an almost like 4-hour drive a day to and from work because of where we lived. So we moved outside the city, which was further, to afford kind of the space that we wanted. So the further away that you go from Toronto, the more bang for your buck essentially that you get. And so my drives to and from work were insane because traffic here is insane. And anyone who lives in Toronto knows that. But it took a toll on me. It like wore on me. Like, road rage is a real thing in this city. And I developed it like nobody's business because I just was spending like too much time in the car. Yes, I would listen to podcast music, have phone calls. It didn't matter. To me, it was like the time that I spend in the car is money that I'm not making because I'm wasting it driving to and from. So it was a bit infuriating. But having said that, when I walked through the door, I was like, I love my home. This is a beautiful place. And if I could work from home, I did. And yeah, I loved the neighborhood. I really loved my home. I want to make that clear. So I was willing to make sacrifices. Sometimes in love, they say, you have to make compromises and or sacrifices. And that was something I was willing to do for like the greater kind of good of wanting that life with him. And that's what he wanted. So I was like, okay, I can do this for you. During the renovation, one thing that kind of stuck out to me was super silly that now, again, in hindsight, I see as maybe a minor red flag, was that, how there are homes that have like the mirrors that come with the home that are glued to the wall? Well, I wanted to take that off and put like a hanging mirror on the wall. And so when I said that, he was like, no, that's a waste of money. I don't want you to rip off the mirror. And well, I was like, well, I bought the mirror already and it was only like $50. It's my own money that I'm buying it with. So I'm just going to do it. So I ripped the mirror off and made it beautiful and put the hanging mirror. And he was kind of like, you shouldn't have done that. And I was like, it's $50. It's my money. You don't have to think about it. Don't worry. And then we kind of let it go. And that was the only comment about like money and what that conversation was. The next step was marriage. He had asked me multiple times, how do you see us getting married? And what kind of ring do you want? And who would be in our wedding party? And lots of questions surrounding that. And so I knew, things were moving in the right direction. Enter the Peloton, friends. Okay, so this is where it was like the beginning of the end. So As I mentioned in media, you get loaned things, there's different relationships with publicists. And I had one who had offered to lend me a Peloton tread. This is when they first came out. And she was like, listen, we're going to give you the tread and membership for free for 8 months. Can you post about it, share your experience, and then we'll kind of pick it up? And I was like, yeah, for sure. So they came and installed it. It was amazing. I fell in love with it instantly. Again, this is not an ad, but the trainers were amazing. Shout out to Bex Gentry. She's my favorite running coach. And it was so beautiful because I could wake up, have a killer workout, sweat my ass off, jump in the shower, and be ready all in the span of like an hour and a half to jump in my car and then drive an hour and a half to 2 hours one way and then drive all the way home afterwards. So my days were really long. So I didn't want to, the idea of going to the gym was sickening. And I like to work out. I consider myself to be a pretty healthy, fit person. But the thought of working out at 7, 8 o'clock at night after I had worked a full day, I mentally couldn't do it. I was like, this is too much for me. So the Peloton was amazing for that. So I used it every day. And he used it every day. He loved it because he worked from home. So in between calls and meetings, he would go for a walk or a run or a workout. It was so convenient and so perfect. And so when the lease for the Peloton came up, I had inquired about buying out the machine and, paying for the membership and what that pricing looked like. And so the machine I could very well afford. I wouldn't be going into debt to buy it. And the monthly membership was equivalent to a gym membership. So I could justify the investment of the machine and having the longevity of it for years and how great and convenient it was, especially because it was 2 for 1 because he used it and I used it, and you can have multiple profiles on the tread. So when I told him the information about what it would cost to buy it outright and that I was interested in it, to me, I was thinking, I'm doing the mature thing in a relationship. I'm doing the responsible thing in a relationship where I'm asking him his, I don't want to say permission, but maybe just weigh in and this final sign off, because I know that it was a more of an expensive purchase. Sometimes, so in marriage classes, before people get married, I know there's a question and it asks you, what are you comfortable spending without letting your partner know? And I feel like that surpassed the threshold for me. So I let him know, even though it was my own money that I was going to buy it with, even though we both used the machine. So once I came to him, he was like, absolutely not. This is stupid. You should be saving that money. I don't think this is the right move. And kind of brushed it off and said what he needed to say and left it. And I said to him, I really need this. It's for my mental health, but my physical health as well. He was like, just suck it up, Nicole, and go to another gym that's cheaper and down the road. Suck it up and pack a bag. I'm I'm always packing a bag. Anyway, so we were going back and forth with it, and then just kind of left it. I knew how he felt about it, but also after having that conversation with him, I was like, well, it's my money. So technically you can't tell me what to do with it. We both made equal payments towards everything, equal with our mortgage, with our bills, with groceries. Things were literally split down the middle. It wasn't you get this and I'll get this. There was a spreadsheet every month, and we would be tracking expenses, and he would say, here's your responsibility. And I never was late for a payment, ever. Never been late for a payment. And I never missed a payment, okay? Never asked for help to make a payment because I've supported myself. I bought and paid for my own car. I bought and paid for my own condo. I'm an adult and I'm responsible. And I travel and like nice things, but I'm also not, I would say, frivolous with money. So I ended up buying the Peloton. As one does. And we were sitting down at dinner outside on our patio in our backyard, and it was really cute. We had a beautiful umbrella. It was all hobo theme, lots of greenery and florals around, and it was really beautiful. and we were sitting for dinner, and he was like, oh, so by the way, what happened with the Peloton? And I was like, oh, I bought it. And he like looks at me and just has this like stern look but like there was shock, but like sternness about him. He said nothing. He got up from the table, grabbed his plate, and kind of like angrily like kind of shoved the table and then walked back into the house. And I was sitting there like, okay, like what is that about? Like he didn't have to react like that. Talk about it. If you're upset about something, talk about it. So I got up and went after him and went inside, and I said, are you okay? Like what's wrong? Don't worry. Like I can afford it. I'm not going into debt for this, and I can pay for everything else. Like don't worry. He dropped his plate and like looked at me. We were across from one another in our kitchen island, and he like put his palms on the island and leaned over in front of me, and he yelled at a volume that I have never heard in, again, the 2 years that I was with him prior. Had never heard him yell like this. And he said, what do you think you're doing without my permission? I can't believe how financially irresponsible you are. I can't trust you with money. If you're going to continue doing this, we're going to have more problems. I can't take it. If you need IVF one day, I'm not paying for it. Yeah. If that was the kicker for me. Number one, it was, I don't trust you, because there was no reason to not trust me. And then number two, it was the fact that he said, if you need IVF, I'm not paying for it. Like I would be the one with the problem, not him, with the fertility issue. I have never felt so hurt and so angry, but also surprised, because it said come out of nowhere, and also like betrayed. It was like, so you've been feeling like this for how long? Who knows how long? And you've clearly like suppressed all of these feelings, and then it's just like coming out like word vomit. I literally didn't have anything to say to him. I literally didn't have anything to say to him. I sat there and I cried the hardest I think I've ever cried, and just sobbing in front of him. He left the house, slammed the door. It was like a whole thing. And yeah, I really, until this day, I still can't believe that someone was capable of saying such hateful things. Whether he meant it or not, it was like, came as a complete surprise. And that's what I say, when to feel like the rug was pulled from underneath me, because I thought the relationship was in a completely different place than obviously he was feeling. So then I cried for like probably a week straight, cried myself to sleep. And he said nothing to me. We were two strangers in a house. We didn't speak. I was like waiting for him to apologize to me and come to me saying the mature conversation of, these are the feelings that I've been having, and I'm so sorry for the things that I said. He couldn't apologize for the things that he said. He couldn't look at me for a week like I was the one that betrayed him after the things that he said to me, after I bought something with my own money. And that pissed him off to that point, which was actually like really scary to see. So then after a week of crying, I finally was like, we need to talk. We need to sit down and figure out what's going on here. So we sat down, and he said to me, Nicole, the only way that I could trust you is if, number one, you let me go through all your financial statements, your Visa, your debit card. I want to see how your money's coming in and out and what you're spending it on. Yep. And number two was, I also want you to go see a financial advisor. And at that point, I looked at him and I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That you think that this is the solution to what you just did and what you've just said to me? Are you kidding me? After someone who's like done everything for him. As a side note, not to mention too, when our house was being renovated, we weren't living in it. He was living at my parents' house, and my parents paid for his food. They didn't charge him rent, nothing. Okay? And all I've done is taken care of myself. This guy hasn't done shit all for me. Shit all for me. And you have the audacity to say that to me? So then I said to him, I said, you are mentally deranged if you think that I'm going to agree to this. I said, I don't need a financial advisor. We need therapy. I'm like, you need therapy. You need help that this is how your head is. That's what you're thinking. And that's how you're handling this. And I will admit, a financial advisor is not a bad thing to go seek and go to as a couple. But what angered me and what made me have my backup was that he thought that that was the solution in that moment. And he stuck to that months later. Like, that's not what the solution was. The solution was that we weren't communicating, and that was the issue. And so, but he couldn't recognize that that was the issue because he was so angry still about the money and about the Peloton. So I let him go through all my statements. I sat on the couch crying, as I continued to do. And he went through, I gave him my laptop, and my phone. I said, go have it. He went through all my stuff for like hours, scrolling, looking at things. You did this, da, 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 da. And again, I agreed to do that. Most people are probably listening to right now and thinking like, why would you do that, Nicole? Like, you're an idiot. You should have just left then. But in my mind, I have nothing to hide. So if you want to see all of that, go for it, because I don't regret any decisions that I've made. I actually consider myself to be in a very good financial position in comparison to many other people. And I'm doing great. I'm doing great for myself. So if you want to do that, go ahead. So he asked me to, you need to cancel your subscription to Amazon Prime. You don't need it. Be organized and order things in advance. You don't need Netflix. We stream things, so you don't need that service either. Things like that. You don't need to get coffee. If you're downtown, you make your own coffee. You're not allowed to buy coffee when you're out. Things like that. When we go to our friends' houses, we don't need to show up with gifts and a bottle every time that we go. Oh, because when I went to your friends' houses, I paid for that. Like, I did that out of the goodness of my heart because you're so cheap that you wouldn't even offer to bring a bottle of wine when your friends are making dinner for us and having us stay over. Okay. He went through all of my financial documents and then I was like, okay, now we're going to therapy. So we did couples therapy. And at this point, I was thinking, I want this to work so bad. I've invested so much. There's so much more good than there was bad. It was like the only bad thing in this relationship is this money thing. And money to me is just greed. Like, I don't know. I wasn't raised like that. Like, yes, I want to do well and I work really, really hard so I can do all the things that I want to do. But it's not everything. Like, to me, you should never let that come between a relationship. You should never let it come above health. You should never let it come before your family. Money doesn't matter in those instances ever. And most importantly, money shouldn't come before love. It shouldn't determine love, and it shouldn't equate to love or the amount of it. That's how I was raised. And so that's how I behaved in this relationship. So we went to therapy and we told the therapist again the nature of our relationship, who we were as individuals. And then she unpacked a little bit of why he was the way he was. And throughout the sessions, we did probably about 10 sessions with her. And it was so interesting because some of the things that came up were really good. It made things very clear to me. So I say to advise to people and my friends now, like, if you're having problems in your relationship, a lot of people are like embarrassed by the thought of going to therapy or needing the extra help. To me, that voice of reason and clarity and like having the unbiased opinion made things so clear to me in a way that like I couldn't really hear from like my mom and dad or my friends. And because she posed certain questions that he was able to then answer in a way that I didn't really like or not answer, which was equally not as good. Like one of the questions being like I was sobbing maybe during a I sound like a crybaby, but this is a rough time. I was sobbing during a session and she turned over to him and she said, just stop what you're saying. She's like, do you see how this is impacting Nicole and how this is making her feel? Because it doesn't show in your body language, There's no remorse. There's no empathy. There's nothing even on your face that you feel sorry that you are the one who are causing her this pain. And he didn't have anything to say. He didn't like grab my hand, put his arm on my leg, put his arm around my back. It was literally like I freaking killed someone is how he was treating me. There's nothing that hurt more than being treated that way, because to me, I was so hopeful that like love was enough that we could work through this, but he was like incapable of meeting me halfway. And that was like the biggest issue that I had. It was like, I let you do all these things. I was willing to, make adjustments to my lifestyle to suit yours because I didn't have a problem. And he still didn't give me like the empathy or even like self-awareness or like open-mindedness to change in any way. And so all of that became very revealing through these sessions. And I very much gave myself a timeline. So this happened, I want to say like end of July, and I gave myself a month to figure this out. I was like, I'm not going to string this along. I'm not going to keep this going. I need to figure this out because I don't want to waste my time, waste my money, and, see the best in someone who doesn't really deserve it after all of this. To give a little bit of context again of like how I was feeling, like I keep saying like I was so upset. Like I was so upset that I literally had like swollen lymph nodes like in my underneath like my armpit. I thought I had cancer. It was like a ball that developed on both arms and I was freaking out. I thought that I had cancer and I had like rashes all over my body, and I went to the doctor and saw like a specialist, and they were like, are you like, nothing is wrong with you. Like everything is okay. Like, are you really stressed or like upset about things right now because, certain levels can affect that? And I said, yeah. And she was like, you need to get that under control or you're going to create cancer in your body. And I like fully believe that. And it was like really scary. Like I'm getting emotional talking about it because to feel like a lump and think that it was caused because someone made me upset, it was like, I never want to give someone that power to like make me sick. Like no relationship or person is worth that. So it made me mad. I'm like crying out of anger because I like can't believe that I let someone do that to me. And in that moment, I think was like, okay, I need to figure this out. So I gave myself the month of August to like therapy, have conversations, try and get as much as I could to like reach a decision and figure it out. So it was the end of August and decision time was coming up, and we had a trip planned to go out to see his family. And I said, I'm not going. Like, I'll give you the money for the ticket. If you want to bring someone else or whatever it is you want to do, I'm not going to spend time with your family right now. It would be disingenuous. And I think we need this time apart to like have a think about what we're going to do moving forward. And obviously he was very upset. I think at first he was in a bit of denial and he didn't think that I would actually not go. But I didn't go. I stayed home. And but before he went, I gave him a list of questions that I was like, don't answer them now. I want you to go and think about your answers to these questions, and then we'll come back and sit, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. Now, the questions that I asked him, in my heart of hearts, I was hoping, I waited for him to come back from the trip because I was hoping so badly that his parents would like knock some sense into him and that his family would be like, dude, what are you doing? You're making a mistake. Wake up. This is like not how you should be handling things. Like, don't let her go. Don't, So some of the questions that I asked him were, if we had kids and we are in a very comfortable financial position, and would you pay for their tuition? That was one question. Another question was, when we have kids, are you going to put them in extracurricular activities? Or, if maybe you didn't have the money to put them in, would you put them in anyways? And you're noticing a pattern and a trend here of like, why are you asking questions about kids? It was like the two of you that had issues right now. The reason why is because I thought to myself, a future with this person. What does that look like? What is my life going to be like when I'm responsible for other humans? And that changes the dynamic of a relationship and makes things much, much harder. I fully recognize that. Two people in a marriage should be easy. When you have kids and other factors that come into it, that's what makes it a little bit more challenging and harder to navigate and things to work through. And so I presented him with all these scenarios about kids because having a family is really important to me. And I hope that I'm blessed to have children one day. And I, again, was raised with the thought and way to give my kids the world. My parents did everything for me and everything for my brother. They sacrificed everything to make sure that we still were able to do the things that we love to do, that they were behind us 110%. And we never knew the background noise of it all, of what was happening. They just made it happen. My dad picked up extra shifts. My mom worked extra jobs. And I appreciate that more than anything. My parents are the freaking best. And I'm so blessed to have them in the same tone. I want to be that sort of parent. I want to give my kids everything because I feel so grateful that I had this beautiful life that I want to be able to give this to my kids one day, which is why I've never settled in any relationship and which is why I've never rushed to be with someone to have kids, because I want to feel ready and I want to be able to give them the world. So when he came back, I was so hopeful. I was so hopeful. At that point, like, we had written each other letters and I had like given him like a song to listen to, and the song was like Taylor Swift. It's called Losing Me. And the lyrics are like, couldn't have been more representative of what I was feeling at that time, where I'll read it to you. She says, "You say I don't understand. I say I know you don't. We thought a cure would come through in time. Now I fear it won't. Remember looking at this room, we loved it because of the light. Now I'm just sitting in the dark and wonder if it's time." And that's like, it's so crazy because that's literally how I felt, especially like in the context of that home that we had like built together and the beauty of the home. And it all felt like it was crumbling and like falling apart. And then another part of the song, it says, "Every morning I glared at you with storms in my eyes. How can you say you love someone you can't tell is dying?" And that's how it felt, is like I was dying inside and you couldn't give two shits about what you were doing to me and how you were destroying me. So when he came back, we sat down and had the discussion. And in that discussion, he had said to me, he gave me the answers. He said, if I had the money, I wouldn't pay for my kids' tuition. They're on their own. They need to figure it out, go into debt and pay it off, which is fine. There's nothing against that. But that's not how I want to raise my kids. If I have the financial ability to help give my kids a head start, you best believe that I will. And you best believe they're still going to work part-time in school and save money, but at least they're going to be saving money to put on a house or a property one day, or to travel. If I have the ability to pay for their school, you best believe I'm going to do that. Another question about their extracurricular activities. I grew up dancing and figure skating competitively, and I learned so much, and I consider myself to be like a very disciplined, hardworking person because of the sport that I did throughout my youth. And he said, no, he's like, they can play soccer in like a house league, or, I'm not letting that. His words were, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something along the lines of, my retirement is more important. Yeah. And he said, like, if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And I said, well, why don't we get another job? Work on the weekends, work a night shift. I'll figure something out. Like, I would work to make sure that if my kid, especially if they were talented in something, that I would look to apply for scholarships, or, there's so many, we're blessed to live in a world where there's so many outlets and things that you can do, especially if your child is talented in something. to make sure that they're rewarded or like that talent is fostered again, because I value that sort of thing. And it didn't even have to be athletic. Maybe it was music. Who knows? But it was the fact that his answers were a hard no. I care about my retirement. I work so hard. Then they're on their own. I couldn't get behind that mentality. And in that moment, I said to him, I was like, listen, I can't do this anymore. I don't think we're the same person, or what I thought our values were aligned, but clearly when it comes to money and finances, they couldn't be more different. And thus, like, I don't see myself marrying or being with someone like you. And he looked at me with shock and sadness. He was sad. And I think a little bit of disbelief, honestly, because I don't think he ever thought that I would actually leave. So what did he do? He made it really hard for me to leave. He was like super manipulative, and in one instance, making me breakfast, and then in the other instance saying, good luck finding someone who can love you. It was like super toxic, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I left and I went to go stay with my parents. Don't worry, I still paid for the mortgage and the bills, but he was living in the house full time. Might I add, for 8 months, I was doing this. We finally sold the house, and that whole process felt like the ugliest divorce that I have ever been through. He was so like money hungry, pulled out the spreadsheet again of, I paid for this, so you get this. It was, even though like we had all of that, it was just so gross to see that he wasn't like, here, Nicole, take this. Like, I had to fight for the things that I deserved outright. And not to mention the money that he owed me for all of the things that I did for him. At the end of the day, like, my mom was very angry, and she was like, Nicole, she's like, if we need dad to go there, I will do it. You deserve this. And I just, at one point, I was like, Mom, it's not even worth it anymore. It's not worth my mental health. It's not worth my physical health. I just want him to be gone. I never want to hear from him again. I never want to see him again. I want him out of my life, and I want this to be done. And I feel so bad. Like, my parents were so great and so supportive. And I honestly just feel so blessed to have them, because they were my rocks during this really, really, I would say this is one of the hardest times of my life. And my parents were everything to me. Like, I relied on them for everything. They were my best friends. They were my therapists. They were my doctors. They were, the source of light that I held on to. And it was really tough, but they were just the greatest. And I'm so grateful for my parents. And I only hope that I could be that kind of parent to my kids one day. I really do. And so walking away from this relationship, it's so interesting, because I never thought to have the conversation about money, or like that was something of importance. But I now know that that's like that is a value, and it matters. And in a relationship, for it to be successful, you have to be aligned on your core values. And if you're not, you're just like doomed, and it filters out in all these other areas of your life. So that was like a big, very hard learning lesson that I had. One of the last things I said to him was like, because he said, I love you, Nicole. And I said, no, you don't. Like, I don't think you do love me. I don't think you know what love is. You never loved me unconditionally, because you placed it on the condition that you can't trust me with money, which I've proved to you time and time again that you can. I've never let you down. And I don't deserve to be treated like this. I deserve to be loved wholly, completely. And I want more for myself. And so that was the end of that. We sold the house to actually like a really beautiful young couple, which makes me so happy. I was so sad and depressed packing up everything, and again, like taking apart that beautiful home that we had built, but it was no longer beautiful because of everything that had transpired from it. And alongside that, the couple that was walking into it were like newlyweds. They had a dog, and it made me so happy amongst the sadness to know that this young couple was going to get everything that I had initially like hoped for to get in that house. It was like they were going to carry on that dream and have that. So it made me like so incredibly happy that it went to two lovely people, and I hope they are doing well. And I took my money and I bought my dream condo in the city of Toronto. So now I can walk to work, which is a dream. And I renovated my condo. I absolutely loved it. And the caveat to condo shopping was that the Peloton had to fit in my condo. Because of course I was not going to leave that behind or sell it, because I like credit that, outburst to it revealing all of these things in this relationship that would have never honestly came out until I got married. So thank you, God. Thank you, universe, thank you, Peloton, for making this happen, because I think I would have been divorced with kids and in a very sad place had I not left that relationship. And it's amazing because, they say everything happens for a reason. I am in a relationship now with someone who legit is the best. I love him to bits, and I really do feel like he loves and sees me for me and loves unconditionally. And I know I would have never had that if I didn't walk away from this. I'm very hopeful that this is my person, but it was very quick too. It was proof that, that exists and that I am deserving and worthy of that. So I love you, honey. And yeah, you might be in a heartbreak right now thinking, why did this have to happen? Why did I have to learn this the hard way? And why is this coming up? I'm telling you, it's happening because it's meant to push you forward and bring you closer to the person that you're supposed to be with. I really believe there's a bit of a plan for us, but we have a say in the plan. Don't think that nothing's out of your control, because it certainly is. And I could have stayed and worked through that relationship if I really wanted to. I could have just shut my mouth and kind of started going along with things and gone to see the financial advisor afterwards, worked through everything, and it would have been fine. There's no part of me that regrets leaving. No part. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but the best thing that I have ever done, because I wouldn't be with my partner now, who I want to do life with. So I want to say thank you to God. Thank you to the universe. Thank you to Peloton, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you.